I had exactly 3 seconds to decide whether to pretend I didn't see him. I used all three of them standing completely still. The gala was loud. 400 people, chandeliers, the kind of room where everything costs more than it looks. I had planned every detail of that evening: the centerpieces, the lighting, the order of the speeches. I had walked that ballroom floor 100 times in the past 2 months. I knew every corner of it. And somehow I had not planned for him. Cole Whitfield was standing at the bar with his back to me. Dark suit, same broad shoulders, same way of standing like he owned whatever room he was in. Not arrogantly, just settled, comfortable in his own weight. I used to love that about him. Then he turned around, and his eyes found me the way they always did, like I was the first thing in the room worth looking at. For exactly 1 second, it was 6 years ago and nothing had happened between us. Then his eyes dropped, down to the small hand wrapped around two of my fingers, down to my daughter, Lila, standing beside me in her navy dress, already bored and already looking for something more interesting than a room full of adults. And just like that, 6 years of silence landed between us like a wall neither of us had built alone. Let me take you back, because you need to understand what we were before you can understand what that night meant. I met Cole Whitfield on a Tuesday in October 7 years ago in Asheville, North Carolina. I was 28 years old. I had my own small event planning business, 2 years old, still fragile, still mostly held together by my stubbornness and very little sleep. I had been hired to manage a 3-day corporate retreat for Whitfield Industries. I did not know what Whitfield Industries was. I had to look it up. What I found was a 90-year-old American company, manufacturing, commercial real estate, industrial supply, started by Cole's grandfather in Ohio with one factory and one idea. By the time Cole was running it, it was worth somewhere around $4 billion and had offices in 6 states. Old money, serious money, the kind of money that doesn't feel the need to announce itself. Cole showed up on the first morning of the retreat in jeans and a plain white shirt. No entourage, no assistant hovering, just him, a cup of coffee, and a name tag that said Cole W. like he was anybody. I corrected his seating arrangement to his face, told him the keynote speaker needed to sit closer to the center of the room, and that whoever placed him at the end had not thought it through. He looked at me for a moment, then he said, "That keynote speaker is me, and I think you're right." Then he laughed, and I was done. We dated for 2 years, not quietly, but privately. There's a difference. We weren't hiding, we just weren't performing. Saturdays at the farmer's market in Charlotte, long drives through rural Virginia with no destination, cooking bad food in his kitchen at midnight and arguing about everything: politics, ambition, family, the right way to load a dishwasher. Cole was not what people expected when they heard the word billionaire. He was thoughtful. He read actual books. He listened when you talked, not waiting for his turn, actually listening. He made me feel like the most interesting person in any room we walked into together, and he never once made me feel like I should be grateful to be there. But his family was a different story. His mother, Harriet Whitfield, was a woman who communicated disapproval through absence. She never said a harsh word to me. She also never said much of anything to me. At the 2 family events I attended, she looked through me the way you look through a window, acknowledging the glass is there without caring what's on the other side. Cole's brother pulled him aside once. I wasn't supposed to hear it, but I did, and said the family had someone in mind, that there were conversations happening, that the Ashworth family had a daughter and a merger that made sense. Cole told me not to worry. He said give it time. He said his family would come around. I loved him, so I waited. I found out about the engagement from a social media post. Not a phone call, not a conversation. A photograph. Cole in a suit, a woman in a white dress, a caption that said, "Whitfield Ashworth, 2 families, 1 future." I sat with my phone in my hand for a long time. I didn't cry right away. I just sat there and read that caption over and over, like if I read it enough times, it would eventually make sense. He called me that same night. I answered. I don't know why I answered. Maybe I needed to hear him say it. Maybe I needed to hear what a man sounds like when he's trying to explain something that has no good explanation. He said it wasn't what I thought. He said the family had arranged things without fully telling him. He said he needed time to figure out how to handle it. He said he still loved me. I listened to all of it, every word. Then I told him, very calmly, that I hoped he found a way to live with himself, and I hung up. What Cole did not know, what I had found out exactly 2 weeks before that photograph, was that I was pregnant. I had taken 3 tests, all of them the same. I had been sitting with that information for 14 days, trying to figure out the right moment to tell him. There had never been a right moment, and now there was no moment at all. I made a decision that night, sitting on the bathroom floor with my phone face down beside me. I decided that my child would never grow up wondering if her father chose her. I decided she would never sit at a family table and be looked through like a window. I decided she would know, from her first breath, that she was somebody's whole world. So I became that somebody. I never called Cole back. I moved back to Charlotte. I built my company with one hand and raised my daughter with the other. Layla came into the world on a rainy April morning, loud and opinionated from minute one. She had my stubbornness and, though I tried not to look too closely, his eyes. I told her the truth in small pieces as she grew. I told her she had a father who didn't know about her yet. I always said yet. I don't know why. Maybe I always believed the yet was real. Back to that ballroom. Cole walked toward me. I did not run because I am not the kind of woman who runs. I also did not smile because I am not the kind of woman who pretends. We stood about 3 feet apart and had the most careful conversation 2 people can have when there is a child between them and 6 years of silence behind them. He said it was good to see me. I said the same. He asked how my business was going. I told him it was going well, which was true. We now had 40 regular clients and a team of 9. He nodded. He said he had heard I was doing well. I wanted to ask how he had heard. I didn't ask. He mentioned, without being asked, that he was no longer married, that the marriage had lasted 14 months. He said it like a fact he needed to place on the table between us, not an excuse, just information. I received it the same way. Then Lila, who had been studying him with the focused intensity she applies to everything she finds interesting, tugged my sleeve and said, "Mommy, his tie is the wrong color for this room." Cole looked at her. Then he looked down at his tie. Then he laughed. That laugh. I had to look at the ceiling for a moment. He knelt down to her level, not dramatically, just naturally, the way you would with a child you weren't trying to impress, and told her she was absolutely right and that he wished he had consulted someone before he got dressed. Lila told him the color he should have worn. He thanked her seriously. When he stood back up, his expression had shifted, just slightly. I could see it moving behind his eyes, careful, quiet. He looked at Lila. He looked at me. He looked at the way she held my hand, the line of her jaw, her eyes. He asked if we could talk. I told him I had an event to run. He said he would wait. For the next 2 hours, I checked on the catering, adjusted 2 table arrangements, handled a microphone issue during the second speech, and answered 11 messages from my staff. And underneath it all, one thought ran like a current through everything. He knows, or he's about to. Lila fell asleep before the gala ended. She was curled up in a chair near the back with my jacket over her, completely unbothered by the world. That child has never had trouble sleeping anywhere in any situation. I used to be jealous of that. Cole found me in the parking deck at the end of the evening. He waited until we were alone. Lila was asleep in the back seat of my car. The fluorescent lights in that parking deck were too bright and too honest, which felt right for what happened next. He asked me directly, "Is she mine?" I looked at him for a moment. There was no point in anything other than the truth. I said yes. He went quiet. Not the loud kind of quiet that is really just anger holding its breath. The real kind, the kind that has actual weight to it. Then he said, 6 years, Nadia. And I said, "You had a fiancé, Cole." We stood there with those two sentences between us. Neither one of us had a good answer for the other. That was the most honest moment we had ever shared. Then he told me something I had not expected. He said he had ended the engagement himself 3 months in, not because of me, he was careful to say that, but because he could not do it. He could not build a life on a decision his family made for him. He said he had been a coward when it mattered, and he wasn't prepared to be one for the rest of his life. He told me that he had tried to find me after that he had found my company, my address, that he had driven to my neighborhood once and sat in his car outside and told himself he didn't have the right to knock, that he assumed I had moved on, that he assumed I was better off without the chaos of his family landing on my doorstep. I listened to all of this. Then I told him my side. I told him I made a decision I believed was protecting my daughter. I told him I had been carrying the weight of that decision every single day, not comfortably, not without doubt, just quietly. I told him I was not asking for his forgiveness and I was not offering mine because neither of us had gotten there yet and I wasn't going to pretend otherwise. He listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't argue. Inside the car, Lila shifted in her sleep and said, "Mommy," in that soft, not quite awake voice she has. I opened the car door. Before I got in, Cole said, "I just want to know her. That's all I'm asking right now. Not anything else. Just that." I got in the car. I drove home. I did not answer him that night. 1 week later, my phone buzzed. A single message from Cole. "I found a good bakery near your office. Lila mentioned she likes lemon things. No pressure, no agenda, just leaving this here." I stared at that message for 20 minutes. Then I laughed, out loud, alone in my office at 7 in the morning. I want to be honest with you about what came after that, because this is not a story where the hard part ends when the truth comes out. Sometimes the truth coming out is where the hard part begins. I spent the following weeks sitting with questions I didn't have answers to. What if Lila got attached to him and it fell apart? What if his world, the money, the family history, the expectations, eventually swallowed her the way it almost swallowed me? What if I let myself trust him again and he found himself, when the pressure came, still choosing wrong? These were not paranoid questions. They were the exact right questions, and I gave them the time they deserved. But I also gave myself permission to be honest about something else. I was tired of carrying everything alone, not in a broken way. I had built a real life, a strong one, and I was proud of it. But there is a difference between independence and isolation. And somewhere in 6 years of doing everything myself, I had let those two things blur together. I called Cole, not to say yes to anything, to lay down terms. Lila comes first. In every situation, without discussion, she comes first. He meets her slowly as someone in her life, not with a label attached. Nothing moves fast. If at any point this feels like it is confusing her or hurting her, it stops. He agreed to every single condition. No negotiation, no pushback. That surprised me more than anything else he had ever done. I also learned around that time that his mother, Harriet, had suffered a stroke the previous year. She was still alive, but quieter now. The force she once carried had softened. Cole didn't say it as an excuse for the past. He just mentioned it. I didn't feel victory when I heard it. I felt something older and heavier than that, something close to grief for a version of things that never got to happen. It has been 3 months since the night of the gala. Cole has met Layla twice in that time, once at a park on a Saturday morning, once at the farmer's market, the same kind of market Cole and I used to go to years ago, which was either coincidence or something I haven't fully examined yet. Both times I watched from a careful distance. Layla came back from the park visit and told me, "He let me win at the guessing game, but I could tell, so I told him to try harder." She seemed satisfied that he had tried harder after that. She came back from the market and said, "He's funny, Mommy, not trying to be funny, actually funny." That is the most important review she has ever given anyone. I want to be clear about where things stand because I think you deserve honesty and not a tidy ending. Cole and I are not back together. We are not in love right now, or if we are, we have not said it, and I do not believe in saying things before they are ready to be said. What we are is two people moving carefully around something that matters. That is the most accurate thing I know how to tell you. I think about the version of me who sat on a bathroom floor 6 years ago and made a decision alone in the dark. I don't regret her. She did what she could with what she had. But I also think she deserved more help than she allowed herself to ask for. I am trying to be different about that now. What I know is this. Layla knows her father exists. She will know him more as time goes on at whatever pace feels safe. She will not grow up with a gap where that should be. That matters more than any other outcome. And Cole, whatever he is to me, whatever we become, he has shown up every time I asked him to. He has not pushed. He has not made promises he can't back up. He has simply been there, consistently, without performance. That is new. That is something. I don't know if this becomes a love story. I genuinely don't know. What I know is that it's a real one. And after 6 years of carrying something this heavy completely alone, I think I'm finally ready to find out which one it is.